Hello, and welcome to our English listening practice session. This episode is specially designed for learners at the B1 and B2 levels who want to improve their listening, understanding, and speaking skills. Today, we're going to talk about an interesting and useful topic while practicing English in a natural way. Before we begin, I would like to ask you a few simple questions to help you start thinking. Take your time and think about your answers as you listen. First question, when was the last time you had a meaningful conversation with someone? Think about it for a moment. Maybe it was a conversation with a close friend, a family member, or even a colleague. Did you talk about your feelings, your dreams, or a problem in your life? Or maybe you discussed an important topic like work, studies, or future plans. Meaningful conversations are usually the ones we remember for a long time. They can make us feel understood, supported, or inspired. Sometimes they help us see things in a new way or solve a problem we were worried about. For example, imagine you are sitting in a small coffee shop with a friend. Your friend asks, "How have you been feeling recently?" You decide to be honest and share something personal. Your friend listens carefully, looks at you, nods, and responds kindly. They don't interrupt you. They really try to understand you. This kind of conversation feels warm and meaningful, doesn't it? Now, let's move to the second question. How do you usually start a conversation with a stranger? This can feel difficult for many people, especially in a new place or in a different language. But it doesn't have to be hard. The way you start a conversation often depends on the situation. If you are at a social event, you might ask something simple like, "What do you think about this event?" Or, "How did you hear about this program?" These questions are easy and friendly. If you are waiting at a bus stop, standing in a line, or sitting next to someone on a train, you can talk about the situation or the weather. For example, you might say, "It's very hot today, isn't it?" Or, "This line is quite long today." Simple comments like these can easily start a conversation. Remember, starting a conversation does not need to be perfect. The most important thing is to make the other person feel comfortable. Smiling, making eye contact, and using a friendly tone can make a big difference. Think about a time when someone started a conversation with you. What did they do that made you feel comfortable? Maybe they smiled, spoke politely, or showed interest in what you said. Now, let's think about the third question. What makes a conversation engaging and enjoyable? An enjoyable conversation usually has two very important elements: active listening and genuine interest. Active listening means really paying attention when someone is speaking. You show that you are listening by nodding your head, looking at the speaker, and giving small responses like, "Oh, really?" Or, "That's interesting." These small reactions show that you care. You can also ask follow-up questions. For example, if someone says, "I love traveling," you can reply, "That sounds great." What is your favorite place you have visited? This keeps the conversation going and shows interest. Genuine interest is also very important. When you are truly curious about the other person, the conversation feels natural and relaxed. People can usually feel when you are honestly interested in them. Imagine you are talking to someone who just came back from a trip. Instead of only saying, "That's nice," you could ask, "What was the most surprising thing you experienced there?" Questions like this make the conversation deeper and more enjoyable for both people. Engaging conversations in English are an important skill, and in this part, we will focus on practical tips that you can use right away. So stay with us as we go deeper into how to start, maintain, and enjoy meaningful conversations in English. Starting a conversation can sometimes feel scary, especially when you are not sure what to say. This feeling is very common, so don't worry. The good news is that there are many simple and natural ways to begin a conversation. One of the easiest ways to start is by making a comment about your surroundings. For example, if you are in a park, you could say, "It's such a beautiful day today, isn't it?" This kind of comment is friendly and relaxed. It gives the other person a chance to agree, smile, or share their own thoughts. Because it is not too personal, it feels comfortable and natural. Another great way to begin a conversation is by giving a compliment. You might say something like, "I really like your jacket. Where did you get it?" Compliments make people feel good and help create a positive atmosphere. Think about the last time someone complimented you. It probably made you feel happy and more open to talking. When a conversation starts in a friendly way, people are more likely to respond warmly. In more formal situations, such as at work or at a networking event, you can use the situation to help you. For example, if you are at a business conference, you could ask, "What did you think about the keynote speaker?" Or, "How did you get started in this industry?" These questions are polite, professional, and related to the event, which makes them excellent conversation starters. Now let's talk about what to do after the conversation begins. This is where active listening becomes very important. When the other person is speaking, really listen to them. Don't just think about what you want to say next. Try to understand their ideas and feelings. For example, if someone says, "I've been learning how to bake recently," you could respond by saying, "That's really interesting. What have you baked so far?" Or, "Do you have a favorite recipe?" Responses like these show that you're interested and paying attention. They also help the conversation continue naturally. Body language is also very important in a conversation. It often speaks louder than words. Try to maintain eye contact, but don't stare. The goal is to show interest, not to make the other person uncomfortable. A relaxed posture, a natural smile, and gentle nodding can make the other person feel comfortable and respected. Think about how you would feel if you were talking to someone who kept looking at their phone or had their arms crossed all the time. You might feel that they are not interested. So use your body language to show that you care about the conversation and the person you are talking to. Another useful tip is to ask open-ended questions. These are questions that cannot be answered with just yes or no. For example, instead of asking, "Did you have a good weekend?" you can ask, "What did you do over the weekend?" This kind of question invites the other person to share more details and helps create a deeper and more interesting conversation. Finally, let's talk about what to do when a conversation starts to slow down or feels like it is losing energy. Don't worry, this happens to everyone. One helpful technique is to gently change the topic while keeping it connected to what you were talking about. For example, if someone has been talking about their favorite books, you could say, "Speaking of books, do you have a favorite author or genre? Or have you read anything interesting recently?" This smooth change keeps the conversation alive without feeling sudden or awkward. These techniques can be used in many situations. You can apply them when you're talking with a close friend, a coworker, or even a complete stranger. By practicing these tips, you will start to feel more confident in your ability to communicate clearly and effectively in English. So stay with us, because there is much more to learn. Now that we have talked about some useful strategies for starting and maintaining conversations, let's look at real-life examples. These examples will help you understand how to use these techniques in different everyday situations. First, imagine this situation. You are at a cafe, waiting for your coffee. There is someone standing next to you who looks friendly. You want to start a conversation, but you don't know what to say. One easy and natural way to begin is by talking about something neutral around you. For example, you could say, "This place is always so busy. Do you come here often?" This is a low-pressure way to start a conversation because it is not personal. It is about the environment. The other person can easily respond by saying something like, "Yes, I love their coffee," or "Actually, it's my first time here." From that point, the conversation can grow naturally. Once the conversation is flowing, you can use follow-up questions to keep it interesting. If the person says it is their first time at the cafe, you might ask, "Oh, really? What made you decide to stop by today?" Questions like this show that you are listening and genuinely interested, which makes the conversation more enjoyable for both of you. Now, let's move to a workplace situation. Imagine you are sitting in a meeting next to someone you don't know very well. The meeting has not started yet, and there is an awkward silence. How can you break the ice? A good idea is to ask a question that is related to work but still casual. For example, you could say, "Have you worked on a project like this before?" Or, "Which part of the project are you most excited about?" These questions are professional, but they also invite a friendly conversation. In a work setting, being a good listener is especially important. If the person starts talking about their role or experience, listen carefully and respond in a thoughtful way. For instance, if they say, "I've worked on similar projects, but this one seems more challenging," you could reply, "That's interesting. What do you think makes this project more challenging?" This response shows that you value their opinion and are interested in their point of view. Now let's think about social events, such as a party or a small gathering with friends. These situations are usually more relaxed, but they can still feel uncomfortable if you don't know many people. In this case, you can use a light and friendly approach. For example, if you are standing near the snack table, you might say, "These snacks look really good. Have you tried them yet?" This kind of comment is easy, natural, and helps start a casual conversation. "Have you tried the mini sandwiches?" This kind of question is light, friendly, and easy for the other person to answer. They might say, "Yes, they're really good," or "Not yet. What do you recommend?" Either way, you have successfully started a warm and natural interaction. Once the conversation begins, you can keep it going by finding common interests. For example, if the person says they like the music playing at the party, you could reply, "Me too. Do you usually listen to this kind of music?" This moves the conversation from the party itself to a wider topic that you can both enjoy talking about. Now let's look at another situation. Meeting someone new in a language exchange program or study group. These places are perfect for practicing your English in a supportive environment. Imagine you are meeting your partner for the first time. You could start by saying, "Hi, I'm your name. How long have you been learning English?" This question fits the situation and allows the other person to talk about their experience. After they answer, you can share something about yourself. For example, you might say, "I've been learning English for about a year. I started because I wanted to travel more confidently. How about you? What made you want to learn English?" This kind of response helps balance the conversation. You share your story and also invite the other person to share more. As we continue, let's talk about some common challenges you might face during conversations. Many learners worry about these situations, but they are completely normal, and there are easy ways to handle them. One common challenge is when the other person seems uninterested or gives very short answers. For example, you ask, "How was your weekend?" And they reply, "It was fine." This can feel uncomfortable, but don't feel discouraged. Instead, try asking a more specific or open-ended question. You could say, "Did you get a chance to relax or do something fun?" This gently encourages them to say more without making them feel pressured. If the person still doesn't seem very engaged, don't take it personally. Sometimes people are shy, tired, busy, or simply not in the mood to talk. In these situations, it is perfectly okay to change the topic or politely end the conversation. You could say something like, "Well, it was nice talking with you. I'll see you around." This keeps the interaction polite and positive. Another challenge many people face is feeling nervous and suddenly forgetting what to say. This happens to everyone, especially when speaking in a second language. The most important thing is to stay calm. Take a small pause and give yourself time to think. You can use simple phrases to buy a little time, such as, "Let me think about that for a moment," or "That's a good question." These phrases sound natural and give you a few extra seconds to organize your thoughts. IT also helps to prepare in advance. If you know you will be attending a meeting, a party, or a networking event, think about a few common questions you could ask. For example, what do you enjoy most about your work? Or have you been to events like this before? Practicing these questions ahead of time can make you feel more confident and relaxed. Practicing common questions ahead of time can really boost your confidence and help you feel more prepared when speaking English. The more prepared you feel, the more relaxed and natural your conversations will become. Now, let's talk about cultural differences in communication, because these differences can sometimes cause misunderstandings. In some cultures, people are very comfortable asking direct questions. In other cultures, people prefer a softer, more indirect way of communicating. In many English-speaking cultures, it is usually acceptable to ask about someone's hobbies, interests, or weekend plans. However, questions about personal topics such as age, salary, or private family matters can feel too personal, especially if you do not know the person well. If you are unsure whether a question is appropriate, it is best to start with something neutral and see how the other person reacts. Body language also plays an important role, and it can mean different things in different cultures. In some places, making eye contact shows respect, confidence, and interest. In other places, too much eye contact might make someone feel uncomfortable or even seem rude. Try to observe the other person's nonverbal signals. For example, if they are leaning slightly forward, smiling, and making eye contact, they are probably enjoying the conversation. On the other hand, if they are crossing their arms, stepping back, or looking away often, they might need more personal space or may not feel very comfortable. Now, let's look at another situation. What happens if the conversation suddenly changes direction? Maybe the other person starts talking about a topic you are not familiar with, such as a hobby, a movie, a book, or a recent news event. Instead of feeling nervous or lost, you can see this as a great opportunity to learn something new. You could say, "I haven't heard about that before. Can you tell me more?" Or, "That sounds interesting. How did you get into it?" These responses show that you're curious and open-minded. This positive attitude often makes conversations more enjoyable for both people. It is also completely okay to admit that you don't know something. For example, if someone talks about a popular TV show you have not seen, you could say, "I've heard of that show, but I haven't watched it yet. What do you like about it?" This keeps the conversation going and gives the other person a chance to share their excitement. Now let's talk about how to end a conversation politely and smoothly. Sometimes you need to leave, or the conversation simply feels finished. In these moments, it is important to close the conversation in a friendly way. You could say something like, "It was really nice talking to you. I hope we can chat again soon." Or, "Thank you for sharing your thoughts. That was very interesting." These phrases show appreciation and leave a positive impression. Now that we have covered these useful strategies, let's move on to some advanced tips for making your conversations even more engaging and memorable. With a few extra techniques, you can take your communication skills to the next level. Let's begin with advanced conversation techniques that help your speaking sound smoother, more natural, and more interesting. These strategies are especially helpful if you want people to remember your conversations in a positive way. One powerful technique is storytelling. People naturally enjoy listening to stories because stories help us connect and share experiences. For example, instead of simply saying, "I had a busy weekend," you could tell a short story about something that happened, such as a small challenge, a funny moment, or an interesting experience. To be more specific, instead of saying something short like, "I had a busy weekend," you can turn it into a small story. For example, you might say, "I had a busy weekend because I helped my friend move into a new apartment. It was a little chaotic, especially when we realized the couch wouldn't fit in the elevator. But in the end, we managed to move everything, and it was a great workout too." Notice how this version adds details and makes the story more interesting. It also invites the listener to react, laugh, or share a similar experience of their own. To practice storytelling, think about a recent event in your life and divide it into 3 simple parts: the beginning, the middle, and the end. Beginning. Introduce the situation. For example, last Saturday, I decided to try a new recipe for dinner. Middle, explain what happened. For example, I followed the instructions, but halfway through cooking, I realized I didn't have one of the main ingredients. End, share the result or a small lesson. For example, in the end, I improvised, and the dish turned out even better than I expected. Now, it's one of my favorite meals. This simple structure makes your story easy to follow and enjoyable to listen to. Another advanced technique for better conversations is using humor. Humor can make conversations lighter and more fun, but it's important to use it carefully. A safe way to add humor is by sharing small, funny observations or lighthearted personal stories. For example, if you were talking about learning English, you could say, "Once I tried to order dessert at a restaurant, but I accidentally said dessert. The waiter looked very confused and asked if I wanted a plate of sand." This kind of humor is easy to understand and relatable, so it usually works well. If you don't feel confident about making jokes, that's okay. You can still use humor by reacting positively to other people's jokes. For example, if someone says, "I'm terrible at cooking. I can even burn water," you could reply, "Wow, that's impressive. What's your secret?" This shows that you are engaged and have a sense of humor, even if you didn't start the joke. Now, let's talk about finding unique ways to connect with people. One effective way is by discovering shared interests. For example, if someone says they enjoy hiking, you might respond, "I love hiking too. Have you been on any interesting trails recently?" Finding something in common helps create an instant connection. Even if you don't share the same interests, you can still connect by showing genuine curiosity. For instance, if someone says they're passionate about painting, you could ask, "What do you enjoy most about painting?" Or, "Do you have a favorite style or artist?" These questions show that you are interested in learning more about them. You can also strengthen your connection by giving thoughtful compliments. For example, if someone shares a creative idea, you might say, "That's a really interesting perspective. I wouldn't have thought of it that way." Compliments like this feel more meaningful because they are specific and sincere, not just general praise. To make your conversations even more dynamic, try using reflective listening. This means briefly repeating or summarizing what the other person has said and responding in a way that shows you understand. For example, if someone says, "I've been really busy at work lately, but I finally finished a big project," you could reply, "It sounds like you've had a very hectic schedule, but it must feel great to finally complete that project." This kind of response shows empathy and makes the other person feel heard and appreciated. Conversations can vary a lot depending on where they happen and who you're talking to. Because of this, it is important to know how to adjust your communication style. Let's explore how to do this, starting with professional situations. In a professional setting, such as at work, in meetings, or during a job interview, it is important to find the right balance between being friendly and staying professional. One helpful way to do this is by using active listening. For example, if a colleague shares an idea during a meeting, you could respond by saying, "That's an interesting perspective. Could you explain a bit more about how it would work in practice?" This kind of response shows respect, interest, and a willingness to discuss ideas in a thoughtful way. When you are sharing your own ideas in a professional conversation, try to use clear and direct language. Instead of saying something long and uncertain like, "I think maybe we should try doing it this way because it might work better," you can say, "I suggest we try this approach because it is more efficient." This sounds more confident and makes your idea easier for others to understand. Another very important skill in professional communication is knowing how to give and receive feedback. When giving feedback, it is best to be constructive and supportive. For example, instead of saying, "Your presentation wasn't very good," you could say, "You made some strong points in your presentation." To make it even better, you might consider organizing the information more clearly. This method focuses on what went well and then gently suggests improvements. When you receive feedback, try to stay open-minded and calm. Avoid taking it personally. You could respond by saying, "Thank you for the feedback. I'll keep that in mind and work on improving in that area." This response shows professionalism and a willingness to learn, which are highly valued in the workplace. Now let's move on to casual conversations, such as talking with friends or meeting new people in social situations. These conversations are usually more relaxed, but they can still improve a lot if you use the techniques we discussed earlier. For example, you can use storytelling to make casual conversations more interesting. Imagine you are at a party and someone asks about your recent vacation. Instead of giving a short answer like, "It was nice," you could share a small story. You might say, "It was amazing. One day, we went hiking and suddenly got caught in a heavy rainstorm. At first, it was frustrating, but then we started laughing and splashing through the rain." This kind of story adds emotion and detail, making the conversation more fun and memorable. We were jumping and splashing through puddles, and in the end, it became one of the best moments of the whole trip. Moments like these often make the best stories in casual conversations. Casual conversations are also a great chance to use humor. For example, if someone talks about the weather, you could reply in a playful way by saying, "It's so hot today, I'm pretty sure my shoes are melting into the road." Light and friendly jokes like this can help break the ice and make conversations more relaxed and enjoyable. Now let's talk about virtual conversations, such as video calls, online meetings, or chat messages. These types of conversations come with their own challenges. One big challenge is that it is harder to read body language and facial expressions. Because of this, you need to depend more on your words. "That's interesting," you could say. "That's a really fascinating idea. I'd love to hear more about it." Adding enthusiasm to your responses helps the other person clearly understand your interest and emotions. Another important tip for virtual conversations is to reduce distractions. Try to keep your background clean and quiet. Also, make an effort to look at the camera instead of the screen. This gives the feeling of eye contact and helps create a stronger connection, even though you are not in the same place. One powerful strategy that works in all kinds of conversations is empathy. Empathy means understanding and caring about how another person feels. It helps build trust and makes conversations more meaningful. For example, if a friend says they're feeling stressed about work, you could respond by saying, "That sounds really difficult. Is there anything I can do to help?" This simple response shows kindness and support, and it can make a big difference to the other person. We have already covered many useful ideas, but there is still more to learn. Let's continue exploring how to use these strategies in specific situations, such as networking events, difficult conversations, and even learning new languages. Becoming a good conversationalist is a long journey, and there is always room to grow. Now, let's focus on networking conversations, which many people find intimidating at first. With the right approach, networking can become a positive and rewarding experience. Networking is about building connections, whether for your career or for personal growth. The key is to approach it with confidence and curiosity. At a networking event or social gathering, starting a conversation is often the hardest part. A simple and effective way to break the ice is by asking open-ended questions. Instead of asking, "Do you like this event?" which may lead to a short yes or no, try asking, "What brought you to this event today?" This question invites the other person to share their story and helps you find common interests. Once the conversation has started, focus on active listening. If the other person talks about a project they're excited about, you could respond by saying, "That sounds really interesting. What was the most challenging part of the project?" This shows genuine interest and keeps the conversation moving naturally. Another helpful tip for networking is to prepare a few conversation starters in advance. For example, you might ask, "What's the most interesting thing you've learned recently?" Or, "Do you have any tips for navigating events like this?" These questions are flexible and work well in many different situations. As the conversation continues, don't forget to share a little about yourself too. Networking is a two-way process. While it is important to listen and show interest in the other person, you should also be ready to talk about your own experiences and interests. For example, if someone asks what you do, you could say, I work in digital marketing, and I'm especially passionate about helping small businesses grow their online presence. It's very rewarding to see their success stories. This response is short but interesting, and it gives the other person a chance to ask follow-up questions if they want to know more. Now let's change focus and talk about difficult conversations. These can include resolving a disagreement, discussing a sensitive topic, or giving constructive criticism. Difficult conversations require care, patience, and empathy. One helpful technique is to use I statements instead of you statements. For example, instead of saying, "You're always late and it's really annoying," you could say, "I feel frustrated when meetings start late because it makes it harder to stay on schedule." This approach explains how you feel without blaming the other person, which can reduce tension and defensiveness. It is also very important to choose the right time and place for difficult conversations. Whenever possible, find a quiet and private space where both people can talk openly without interruptions. For example, instead of raising a sensitive issue in a busy office, you could say, "Could we find a time to talk privately about something that's been on my mind?" This shows respect and helps create a safe space for honest discussion. During the conversation, practice active listening and acknowledge the other person's feelings and perspective. If they say, "I've been under a lot of pressure lately," you might respond, "I understand how stressful that can be. Let's see if we can find a solution that works for both of us." This kind of response shows empathy and encourages cooperation. Difficult conversations can sometimes be emotional, so it is important to stay calm. If you start to feel overwhelmed, take a deep breath and focus on finding common ground. You could say something like, "We both want the best outcome, so let's work together to find a solution." This reminds both people that you are working toward the same goal. Finally, let's talk about how these conversation techniques can help with language learning. Conversations are one of the most effective ways to improve your speaking and listening skills in a new language. To practice effectively, focus on real-life situations that you are likely to experience. For example, ordering food at a restaurant or asking for directions. You can practice by role-playing with a friend or using a language learning app. For instance, when practicing ordering food in English, you might say, "Hi, I'd like to order a cheeseburger with fries and a soda, please." Then, practice responding to follow-up questions such as, "Would you like any sauces with that?" Or, "Is this for here or to go?" To make your practice more interesting, try adding storytelling. Instead of just saying something simple like, "I went to the restaurant," you can describe what happened, how you felt, and what you learned. This helps you use more vocabulary, practice sentence structure, and sound more natural when speaking English. For example, instead of giving a short answer, you could share a small story. You might say, "I went to the store to buy some milk, but I ended up having a funny conversation with the cashier about the weather. It was raining so hard that they joked about needing a boat to get home." Stories like this help you improve your vocabulary and give you practice using different verb tenses and sentence structures in a natural way. We have already talked about networking, handling difficult conversations, and language learning strategies. However, there is still much more to explore. Let's continue and see how these skills can help you build meaningful relationships, navigate cultural differences, and even become a more confident public speaker. Now, let's focus on a topic that is closely connected to good conversations: building meaningful relationships. These relationships can be professional, personal, or casual. In all cases, strong communication skills help create deeper and more lasting connections. A good conversation is not just about sharing information. It is about creating an emotional connection, which is very important for any relationship. When building meaningful relationships, one of the first things to focus on is trust and authenticity. Think about how you usually talk to people. Are you truly interested in what they are saying, or are you just waiting for your turn to speak? Active listening is one of the most powerful ways to build trust. For example, If someone is sharing a story about their childhood, try not to interrupt them with your own story. Instead, you could respond by saying, "That's a really interesting story. What was your favorite part of growing up there?" This shows that you value their experience and want to understand their world better. Another important strategy is being open and honest, also called vulnerability. This does not mean sharing very personal details. It simply means expressing your real thoughts and feelings in a respectful way. For example, if a coworker asks how you feel about a project, instead of saying something vague like, "It's fine," you could say, "I'm excited about the direction we're going, but I'm also a little nervous about meeting the deadline. How do you feel about it?" When you share your feelings, the other person often feels comfortable sharing theirs too, which helps deepen the connection. Empathy is another key part of meaningful relationships. Empathy means understanding and caring about how someone else feels, not just hearing their words. For instance, if a friend tells you they are feeling overwhelmed, you might respond by saying, "I'm really sorry you're feeling this way. It sounds like you have a lot to deal with right now. Is there anything I can do to help?" Small, thoughtful responses like this show kindness and support, and they help strengthen your relationship. Now let's think about cultural differences and how they can affect conversations and relationships. In today's connected world, we often communicate with people from many different cultures. Understanding these differences can make communication smoother and more respectful. For example, in some cultures, making direct eye contact is seen as a sign of confidence and respect. In other cultures, too much eye contact may feel uncomfortable or even rude. In the same way, people express disagreement differently. Some cultures prefer very direct communication, while others use softer and more indirect language to avoid conflict. Different cultures communicate in different ways. Some cultures value direct communication, while others prefer a more indirect approach. To navigate these differences, it helps to be observant and adaptable. Pay attention to how the other person speaks and try to adjust your style to match theirs when it is appropriate. For example, if the person you are talking to uses formal language, you can also speak more formally. On the other hand, if the conversation is relaxed, you can use a more casual tone. Another way to connect across cultures is to show curiosity and respect for the other person's background. You can ask questions like, "What is a tradition from your culture that you enjoy?" "How do people in your community usually approach this topic?" These questions make the conversation richer and show that you are genuinely interested in their perspective. Now let's talk about public speaking, which is another area where good communication skills are very useful. Public speaking could mean giving a presentation, leading a meeting, or speaking on a panel. Being able to speak clearly and confidently in front of a group is an important skill. One key to successful public speaking is preparation. Organize your ideas with a clear structure, an introduction, main points, and a conclusion. For example, if you are giving a talk about sustainability, you could start with a short personal story to capture attention, then share 3 practical tips, and finish with a call to action. Another important part of public speaking is engaging your audience. You can do this with eye contact, body language, and interactive questions. For example, you might ask, "How many of you have tried reducing your plastic waste at home?" And then invite a few people to share their experiences. These interactions make your talk more interesting and memorable. Many people feel nervous about public speaking, but there are ways to manage this. One technique is visualization. Imagine yourself giving your speech confidently and the audience responding positively. You can also use deep breathing exercises to calm yourself before speaking. Remember, even experienced speakers feel nervous sometimes, but preparation and practice can make a big difference. Now, let's talk about challenging conversations, which often require a mix of diplomacy, strategy, and emotional intelligence. These can include negotiating a deal, resolving a conflict, or making a persuasive argument. While these conversations can feel difficult, They are also an opportunity to show your communication skills and strengthen relationships. One example of a challenging conversation is negotiation. This could be about a salary, a business deal, or partnership terms. The goal is to find a solution that works for both sides. One important principle in negotiation is to approach it collaboratively. Instead of trying to win the conversation, focus on understanding the other person's needs and finding a solution that benefits both of you. By being aware of cultural differences, practicing public speaking, and learning how to handle difficult conversations, you can become a more confident and effective communicator in many areas of life. These skills will help you build stronger relationships, handle challenges calmly, and leave a positive impression on others. When you are in a negotiation or a difficult discussion, it helps to have the right mindset. Instead of thinking that the conversation is a competition where you have to win, try to see it as a problem-solving exercise. Both sides should benefit from the discussion. For example, if you are asking for a raise at work, don't focus only on the amount of money you want. Instead, you could ask questions like, "What can I do to contribute more to the team to earn this raise?" This shows that you are willing to work hard and find a solution that is good for both you and your employer. During negotiations, it is also very important to stay calm and patient. Sometimes negotiations can become tense, especially when both people have strong opinions. Getting angry, defensive, or frustrated will only make things worse. Instead, try to listen carefully to the other person's concerns. For example, if a colleague says, "I think the terms you're suggesting are too high," you could respond, "I understand your concerns. Let's see how we can find common ground that works for both of us." By showing that you understand their point of view, you create a more positive and constructive environment for discussion. Another important strategy is to know your goals and limits before the conversation. Think clearly about what you want to achieve and what you are willing to compromise on. For instance, if you are negotiating better work hours, decide what your ideal schedule would be and also the minimum schedule you are willing to accept. This helps you stay focused and avoid agreeing to something that does not meet your needs. Now, let's talk about conflict resolution, which is another type of challenging conversation. Conflicts happen in every relationship, whether personal or professional. How you handle conflict can make a big difference in your relationships. One key principle is to focus on the problem, not the person. Conflicts often become personal when people start blaming each other, but this usually makes the situation worse. For example, if you have a disagreement about a team project, don't say, "You're not doing your part of the work." Instead, you could say, "I feel a bit overwhelmed by the workload. Maybe we can divide the tasks more evenly." This way, the conversation focuses on solving the problem, not blaming anyone. Active listening is very important in conflict resolution. When you really listen to the other person's point of view, it shows respect and willingness to find a solution. For instance, if someone says, "I feel like my work is not being recognized," you could respond, "I hear you.
I didn't realize you felt that way.
I want to understand more about what you need from me to feel supported." Staying calm and composed is also very important. When emotions are high, it is easy to let anger or frustration take over. Taking deep breaths, speaking slowly, and focusing on solutions can help you stay in control and make the conversation more productive. By using these strategies, thinking collaboratively, listening carefully, staying calm, and focusing on the problem, you can handle negotiations and conflicts more effectively. This helps you build better relationships and solve problems in a positive way. Sometimes during conversations, especially difficult ones, we can feel overwhelmed or emotional. If you notice yourself starting to feel stressed, it helps to take a deep breath and pause before speaking. If needed, you can suggest taking a short break to cool down before continuing the conversation. This can prevent you from saying something you might later regret. It also gives you a chance to think more clearly and respond in a calm and respectful way. Another important skill in challenging conversations is persuasive communication. Persuasion is the ability to convince someone to see your point of view or take action based on your ideas. You might use persuasion at work when presenting a new idea, with friends when inviting them to join an activity, or even when encouraging someone to support a cause. Being persuasive can make your ideas stronger and help you reach your goals. One of the most effective tools in persuasion is logic and evidence. People are more likely to agree with you if you provide clear reasons for your point of view. For example, if you want to change a company policy, instead of just saying, "I think this is a good idea," you could say, "Research shows that making this change could improve productivity by 15%. Other companies have tried it successfully, and it could save money in the long term." By giving facts and evidence, you make your argument stronger and harder to ignore. Another powerful approach is to appeal to emotions. Emotions are very important in decision-making. If you can connect your idea to what someone cares about, they are more likely to listen. For instance, if you want your friend to volunteer at a charity, instead of just saying, "We need more volunteers," you could tell a short story. "This charity helps children learn to read, and last month they helped 50 kids improve their skills." It really makes a difference. This kind of story creates an emotional connection and motivates people to take action. Building credibility is also important in persuasion. People are more likely to trust someone who is honest, knowledgeable, and consistent. For example, if you want to persuade someone to live a healthier lifestyle, you could share your own experience. "I started walking every day, and it has really improved my energy and mood." Sharing your own success makes your advice more believable and relatable. Finally, to be persuasive, it is important to understand the other person's needs and concerns.
Think about what matters to them.
What are their goals? What worries might they have? For example, if you are persuading a colleague to support a new project, ask yourself, what are their concerns? Do they worry about time or resources? Once you understand their perspective, you can offer solutions that meet both your needs and theirs. By using these strategies, staying calm, using logic and evidence, appealing to emotions, building credibility, and understanding the other person, you can navigate difficult conversations, negotiate successfully, resolve conflicts, and persuade others effectively. These tools are useful in many situations, from professional meetings to personal discussions, and they help you communicate with confidence and respect. As we continue learning how to improve your conversational skills, remember that practice and preparation are very important. The more you practice difficult or advanced conversations, the more confident and skilled you will become. Now, let's look at advanced strategies for conversations, especially for situations that can be challenging. These include staying calm under pressure, handling power differences, and managing high-stakes conversations. These strategies are useful whether you are negotiating a business deal, resolving a personal conflict, or talking in emotionally charged situations. 1. Maintaining composure in difficult conversations. Staying calm and composed is very important. In intense situations, emotions can rise quickly. If you react immediately when angry or upset, it can make things worse. Staying calm helps you think clearly and respond in a thoughtful way. One simple technique to stay calm is controlled breathing. When you feel stressed or emotional, take a slow, deep breath. This can reduce tension, clear your mind, and give you a moment to think before you speak. For example, if you are in a heated argument, instead of reacting right away, pause and take a breath. Then you could respond calmly. "I can see why you are upset. Let's talk about this without raising our voices." This approach helps you stay calm and also sets a positive tone for the conversation. Another useful strategy is reframing the situation. When you feel defensive or anxious, try to see the conversation as an opportunity rather than a battle. For example, if you disagree with a colleague about a project, instead of thinking, "I must win this argument," you could think, This is a chance to find a better solution for our team. This mindset helps you stay open, positive, and less emotional during the discussion. 2. Managing power dynamics. Sometimes, conversations involve people in positions of authority, like managers, clients, or team leaders. Power dynamics mean the balance of control in a conversation, and they can affect how the discussion goes. A key skill is to be assertive without being aggressive. Assertiveness means expressing your thoughts, needs, and feelings clearly, without attacking or undermining the other person. For example, if you are negotiating with a client and need to set clear boundaries, you could say, "I understand your budget, but for this project to succeed, we need to agree on a higher rate." This statement is calm, direct, and professional. You clearly express your needs while respecting the other person's position. Another part of handling power dynamics is listening carefully and showing respect. Even when you have less authority, you can influence the conversation by being polite, confident, and prepared. For example, during a meeting with your manager, instead of saying, "I don't agree with your idea," you could say, "I see your point. I also have another idea that might help achieve the same goal." This shows that you are thoughtful, respectful, and confident, which helps balance the conversation.
Summary.
By staying calm, using controlled breathing, reframing your mindset, being assertive, and showing respect, you can handle difficult, high-pressure, or high-stakes conversations more effectively. These strategies make your communication clear, respectful, and constructive, whether in personal or professional situations. Even when you are talking to someone in a position of authority, like a manager, supervisor, or senior colleague, active listening is very important. Paying close attention to what they say helps you understand their perspective and build trust. For example, imagine you are in a meeting with your supervisor discussing a new project. Instead of interrupting or immediately arguing, listen carefully to everything they say. Then you could respond, "I understand your point about the timeline, but I have some ideas that could help speed up the process. Could we explore that?" This shows that you respect their position while still sharing your ideas in a positive and constructive way. Handling high-stakes conversations. High-stakes conversations are situations where the topic is very important and the outcome can have a big impact. Examples include salary negotiations, project deadlines, personal or sensitive matters. These conversations can be stressful and emotional, so it's important to prepare and plan carefully. 1. Prepare thoroughly. Before a high-stakes conversation, do your homework. Know the facts, understand the other person's perspective, and think about possible questions or challenges they might raise. For example, if you are negotiating a salary, research industry standards. Know your company's budget. Be ready to show your achievements and performance. Being prepared makes you feel confident and credible during the conversation. 2. Manage expectations. Be clear about what you want, but also be open to compromise. For example, in a discussion about a project deadline, you might say, "I understand the urgency of this project, and I believe we can meet the deadline with a few adjustments to the timeline." By managing expectations and offering solutions, you create a collaborative environment where both people focus on finding a solution together instead of competing. 3. Navigate emotional triggers. High-stakes conversations can bring up strong emotions like fear, frustration, or anxiety. These feelings can make it hard to think clearly. It is important to recognize your emotions and manage them. Techniques include taking a short break if needed, focusing on your breathing, redirecting attention to the facts of the situation. For example, if a conversation becomes tense and you feel frustrated, you could say, "Let's take a moment to calm down so we can think more clearly." This gives both sides a chance to refocus and continue more productively. 4. Set clear goals and boundaries. Before and during the conversation, know what you want to achieve and what you are willing to accept. This helps you stay focused and confident. For example, in a salary negotiation, you might think, your ideal increase, 10%. The minimum you can accept, 5%. Then you can say confidently, I would like to see a 10% increase in my base salary, and I am happy to discuss other options if needed. By being clear, you stay assertive and professional while negotiating. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. It is very powerful in important or high-pressure conversations. Using empathy helps you connect with others, build trust, and find solutions that benefit everyone. For example, imagine you are discussing a delay in a project. Instead of blaming someone for the delay, you could say, I understand that the delay has caused frustration, and I want to work together to get things back on track. This shows that you care about the other person's feelings while keeping the conversation focused on solving the problem. Summary of high-stakes conversation skills. To handle challenging conversations well, it is important to maintain composure, stay calm even if the discussion is tense. Manage power dynamics, be assertive without being aggressive. Prepare carefully, know your goals, facts, and possible compromises. Practice empathy, understand the other person's feelings, and work together. Use active listening, pay attention, and respond thoughtfully. Regulate your emotions, take breaks or deep breaths if needed. These skills help you communicate confidently and find solutions that work for everyone. Conflict resolution. Conflicts happen in life, at work, with friends, or in families. The way you handle conflict makes a big difference in the results. A strong technique is the win-win approach. Instead of thinking that one person must win and the other lose, look for a solution where both sides feel satisfied. To do this,
Listen carefully to both sides.
look for common ground. Focus on solutions, not blame. For example, if you are negotiating with a business partner about a contract, instead of arguing about who gets the better deal, consider both perspectives. You could say, I understand your concerns about the timeline. How can we adjust it so that it works for both of us? This way, you show that you respect their needs while finding a solution that benefits both parties. Practical tips for applying these skills. These techniques are useful in many situations, both professional and personal. Professional settings, negotiating contracts, discussing deadlines, handling team conflicts. Personal life, resolving disagreements with friends, family issues, or planning group activities. By practicing these skills, you can build stronger relationships, make better decisions, express yourself clearly and confidently, turn difficult conversations into opportunities for cooperation and understanding. When you are trying to solve a conflict, it is important to focus on working together, not fighting. Collaboration helps both people find a solution that works for everyone. For example, if you are discussing a schedule, you might say, let's adjust the timeline so it works for both of us. This shows you want to work together rather than argue. Using neutral language. When emotions are high, it is easy to say things that make the other person feel blamed or defensive. Words like you always or you never can escalate the situation. Instead, try neutral language that focuses on the problem, not the person. For example, instead of saying, you never meet deadlines, you can say, I've noticed some delays with recent deadlines, and I want to understand what's happening so we can fix it. This keeps the conversation solution-focused instead of turning it into a personal attack. Emotional intelligence in conversations. Emotional intelligence, EQ, is the ability to understand your own emotions and the emotions of others. High EQ is very important for difficult or emotional conversations. Empathy. Empathy means understanding how the other person feels and showing that you care. For example, if a colleague is frustrated about a project, you could say, I can see how stressful this situation is for you. How can I help make it easier? This shows that you acknowledge their feelings and want to find a solution together. Self-regulation. Self-regulation is the ability to control your own emotions, even when the conversation is stressful. If you feel upset or frustrated, pause and take a deep breath before responding. For example, you might think, "I'm feeling angry, but I need to stay calm to solve this logically." You can practice self-regulation using mindfulness techniques, like focusing on your breathing or briefly clearing your mind before speaking. This helps you stay balanced and respond effectively. Clarity in communication. Clear communication is key to making sure your message is understood. In high-pressure conversations, people often focus too much on emotions and forget to clearly explain what they need or want. A useful technique is the one point at a time rule. Focus on one main message instead of giving too much information at once. For example, if you're talking about changes to a project timeline, instead of listing many changes at once, start with the most important change. The deadline for the first phase needs to be moved from Friday to Monday. This makes your message easier to understand and avoids confusion. When you're having a high-pressure or difficult conversation, it helps to break the discussion into smaller parts. This makes it easier for everyone to follow and ensures that the most important points are understood. For example, if you are discussing a project, you could say, "I'd like to talk about adjusting the deadline first, and then we can look at other parts of the project later." By addressing one topic at a time, you make the conversation clearer and more manageable. Reiterate key points. Clarity is very important in any conversation. After discussing important topics, it's a good idea to summarize or recap the main points to make sure everyone understands. For example, in a meeting about a new project, you might say, "Just to confirm, we've agreed on the project scope and timeline, and we'll follow up next week with a budget update." This recap helps reinforce the main points and gives the other person a chance to clarify anything before it becomes a bigger issue. Persuasion in high-stakes conversations. Sometimes you need to persuade someone to agree with your idea or proposal. The most effective way is to combine logic with empathy. Logical reasoning, present facts, evidence, or data to support your point. Emotional appeal. Show that you understand the other person's perspective and feelings. For example, if you want to convince a client to extend a project deadline, you could say, "Based on research, a longer timeline will improve the project quality and ensure the best results. I understand this may be inconvenient, but this adjustment will benefit everyone in the end." By combining facts and understanding, your argument becomes stronger and more convincing. Closing difficult conversations. Ending a conversation in a positive and professional way is just as important as how you start it. Summarize main points and confirm next steps. "We've agreed on the payment terms, and I'll send a revised proposal by the end of the day. I look forward to working together." Express appreciation. Even if the discussion was challenging, thank the other person for their time and input. For example, "I appreciate your openness and the time you took to discuss these issues. I'm confident we'll find a solution that works for both of us." This approach leaves a positive impression and keeps the door open for future discussions. Key tips for high-stakes conversations. Stay calm, take deep breaths, and pause if emotions rise. Be clear, focus on one main point at a time. Use empathy, understand the other person's perspective. Combine logic and emotion. Use facts and understanding together. Summarize and confirm. Ensure everyone is on the same page. Express appreciation. Leave a positive and professional impression. By practicing these strategies, you can handle difficult or high-stakes conversations with confidence, professionalism, and respect. Next step, active listening. Another very important skill is active listening. This is essential for successful communication because it helps you truly understand the other person and respond thoughtfully. Active listening makes your conversations more meaningful and effective, Active listening is a very important communication skill. It is more than just hearing what someone says. It means paying full attention and showing that you understand the speaker. Active listening is especially useful in complex conversations, negotiations, or high-pressure situations where misunderstandings can cause problems. How to practice active listening. Provide feedback. Active listening involves giving feedback to the speaker, not just nodding silently. Use words or phrases that show you are following along, like, "I see what you mean." That's an interesting point. These responses help the speaker feel heard and valued. It also encourages a safe and open conversation where both people can share their thoughts freely. Paraphrase what you hear. Paraphrasing is restating what the other person said in your own words. This ensures you understood correctly and gives the speaker a chance to clarify if needed. For example, if a colleague says, "I think we need more time for testing the project," you can respond, "So you're saying that you'd like to extend the project deadline because more testing is needed. Is that correct?" This shows that you are engaged and trying to understand their perspective. Stay mindful. During important conversations, emotions can make it hard to listen properly. Mindfulness helps you stay focused on the speaker without distractions. Pay attention to their words fully. Avoid thinking about your reply while they are talking. Focus on your breathing or stay grounded in the present moment. A helpful technique is the 3-second pause. After someone finishes speaking, wait a few seconds before responding. This allows you to organize your thoughts and respond in a thoughtful way instead of reacting too quickly. Body language. Communicating without words. A lot of communication happens without words. Your gestures, posture, facial expressions, and tone of voice all send signals to the other person. For example, in a serious conversation, leaning in slightly, maintaining eye contact, and nodding shows you are interested and engaged. Crossing your arms or looking away may signal disengagement or resistance, even if your words are polite. Mirroring. Building connection through body language. Mirroring is a technique where you subtly copy the other person's body language. For example, if they lean forward, you lean forward slightly. If they speak calmly and softly, you match their tone. Mirroring can create a sense of rapport and trust. It shows the other person that you are on the same page and makes them feel more comfortable. Why active listening and body language matter. Combining active listening with good body language helps you understand the other person better. Avoid misunderstandings. Build trust and connection. Respond thoughtfully, even in stressful conversations. By practicing these skills, you can make your conversations more meaningful, clear, and effective. Mirroring is a way to create a sense of connection and trust in a conversation. It means subtly matching the other person's body language to show that you are on the same page. For example, if your conversation partner is sitting forward with open hands, you might lean forward slightly too. If they speak in a calm and soft tone, you could match that tone. This shows that you are aligned with their feelings and engaged in the conversation. However, it's important to make mirroring natural and subtle. If it's too obvious, it may seem insincere or manipulative, which can harm the connection. Cultural differences in body language. Body language is not the same everywhere. Different cultures have different rules about eye contact, gestures, and personal space. For example, in some cultures, direct eye contact shows respect and attention. In other cultures, it might be considered rude or confrontational. Being aware of these differences helps you adapt your communication depending on the setting and audience. This is important in international business meetings or social gatherings with people from different cultures. Questioning techniques. Asking the right questions. Asking the right questions can guide a conversation, gather useful information, and help people share more. Here are some types of questions and how to use them. Open-ended questions. These encourage discussion and detailed responses. Example, instead of asking, "Did you enjoy the presentation?" Ask, "What aspects of the presentation did you find most helpful?" Open-ended questions invite more sharing and make conversations deeper. Closed-ended questions. These are yes/no or fact-based questions. Example, "Did you meet the deadline?" Or, "Is this the final version of the report?" Closed questions are useful for confirming facts or making quick decisions. Probing questions. These encourage deeper thinking or clarification. Example, "Can you elaborate on that point?" Or, "What led you to that conclusion?" Probing questions help you understand ideas better and sometimes challenge assumptions politely. Giving constructive feedback. Giving feedback is an important skill, especially in work or team settings.
Constructive feedback is
Specific. Focus on a particular issue. Actionable. Suggest ways to improve. Encouraging. Helps the person improve rather than feel discouraged. Example of feedback. Instead of saying, "This isn't good enough," you could say, "I think the design could use some adjustments in the layout to improve readability. What do you think about trying a different font size? I believe this will make it easier for users." This kind of feedback gives a clear path forward, encourages the receiver to share their ideas, improves collaboration and teamwork. Being mindful when giving feedback. When delivering feedback, pay attention to tone of voice. Speak calmly and respectfully. Timing. Give feedback in a private or appropriate setting. Focus. Address the issue, not the person. For example, instead of saying, "You always make mistakes in reports," you could say, "I noticed a few errors in the report. Let's go over them together and see how we can improve accuracy next time." This approach keeps the conversation positive, helpful, and productive. The way you say something can be just as important as the words you use. Your tone of voice and how you deliver a message can greatly affect how it is received. Using a calm and respectful tone shows that your intention is to help or support the other person. An aggressive, harsh, or condescending tone can make the other person defensive, upset, or unwilling to listen. The key is to strike a balance. Be clear in your message, but also empathetic. For example, instead of saying, "You did this wrong," you could say, "I noticed a few things that could be improved. Let's go through them together and see how we can make it better." This approach communicates your message without making the person feel attacked. Building rapport. Rapport is the trust, understanding, and connection that develops between people. It is essential for strong relationships, both personally and professionally. One of the simplest ways to build rapport is through small talk. Small talk isn't just about filling silence. It's about showing interest in the other person, finding common ground, making them feel comfortable. Examples of small talk questions. How was your weekend? Did you enjoy the latest episode of that show? Have you tried any new restaurants lately? In professional settings, you can build rapport by finding shared interests. If a colleague likes the same sports team or hobby as you, it can become a natural conversation starter. In client-facing roles, establishing rapport can create trust and make difficult conversations easier later. Rapport is about connection, not just conversation. When people feel connected, they are more likely to listen, cooperate, and share openly. Empathy. Understanding others' feelings. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. It helps you connect on a deeper level and shows that you genuinely care about others' experiences, concerns, and emotions. Empathy strengthens relationships, builds trust, and helps resolve conflicts. It's more than being sympathetic. It's about actively engaging with someone's emotions. For example, imagine a colleague is struggling with a deadline. Instead of immediately giving advice, you could say, "I can see that this is really stressful for you. I understand how overwhelming it can be. How can I help right now?" This approach acknowledges their emotional state, offers support, makes the other person feel heard and validated. Empathy is also extremely useful in conflict resolution. By understanding the emotions behind a disagreement, you can often find a peaceful and effective solution that works for everyone. Emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, EQ, is the ability to understand the emotions of others, manage your own emotions effectively. High emotional intelligence allows you to stay calm in difficult situations, communicate clearly without letting frustration take over, respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. For example, in a tense meeting, instead of reacting angrily, take a deep breath and say, "I understand this is a challenging situation. Let's work together to find the best solution." By combining empathy and emotional intelligence, you can handle stressful or emotional conversations with grace, keep relationships strong, even under pressure, encourage cooperation and trust.
Summary.
To communicate effectively in any situation, tone of voice, speak clearly, respectfully, and calmly. Build rapport. Start with small talk and shared interests to create connection. Show empathy. Understand and acknowledge the feelings of others. Use emotional intelligence. Manage your own emotions while considering others' feelings. When you practice these skills consistently, you will build stronger personal and professional relationships. Navigate difficult conversations more smoothly. When conversations are difficult and emotions are high, being emotionally intelligent is very important. Emotional intelligence means recognizing your own feelings and the feelings of others and responding in a way that keeps the situation calm rather than escalating it. For example, in a team meeting, if someone expresses frustration or disagreement, instead of reacting angrily or defensively, you could say, "I understand that this is frustrating, and I appreciate your honesty. Let's figure out how we can work together to resolve this." This kind of response shows that you acknowledge their emotions and are willing to work collaboratively, which helps reduce tension. Clarity in communication. Alongside emotional intelligence, clarity is key. Clear communication ensures your message is understood and prevents misunderstandings. It also keeps conversations focused on the main point. Some ways to improve clarity include: simplify your language. Avoid jargon or complex terms, especially if others might not understand them. For example, instead of saying, "We need to optimize our KPIs for maximum ROI," you could say, "Let me explain this in simpler terms. We want to measure results that show how well our work is doing." Organize your thoughts before speaking. Planning your message helps you avoid rambling or getting off topic. Start with a clear summary, then provide supporting details or examples. For instance, if explaining a new process, start with, "Here's the main goal of this process," and then go step by step. By keeping your words simple and structured, the listener can follow your message easily and remember the key points. Assertive communication. Assertive communication is about expressing your thoughts, feelings, and needs in a clear, confident, and respectful way. It is a balance between being passive and aggressive. Passive communication means not expressing your needs and going along with everything, even if it's uncomfortable. Aggressive communication means pushing your needs without considering others. Assertive communication respects both your needs and the other person's perspective. For example, if someone asks for your help, instead of saying, "I'm not sure if I can help you," passive, or "I'll do it because you said so," aggressive, you could say, "I am happy to help, but I need to finish this task first. Can we set a time to discuss this later?" This response is direct, respectful, and clear, showing that you care about your own priorities as well as the other person's request. Assertiveness in negotiation and boundaries. Assertiveness is especially important in negotiation, whether it's about a business deal, a project deadline, or personal boundaries. Being assertive helps you express your position clearly and confidently. Respect the other person's perspective. Achieve mutually beneficial outcomes. Setting boundaries is a big part of assertiveness. Boundaries mean clearly stating what you are or aren't willing to accept. This is essential for healthy personal and professional relationships. For example, if a colleague keeps asking for help with tasks outside your job, an assertive response could be, "I understand that you need help, but my workload is full. I can assist with this project next week. Does that work for you?" This shows that you are willing to help without compromising your own responsibilities. Self-awareness and authenticity. Another key part of assertive communication is self-awareness. This means understanding your own feelings, needs, and limits. Being self-aware helps you respond authentically instead of just reacting to others. It allows you to communicate in a way that is honest, respectful, and true to yourself. For example, if someone pressures you to take on more work than you can handle, self-awareness helps you say no confidently and politely, without feeling guilty or angry.
Summary.
In challenging conversations, whether at work or in personal life, use emotional intelligence to recognize emotions and respond calmly. Speak with clarity, simplifying your language and organizing your ideas. Practice assertive communication to express yourself clearly while respecting others. Set boundaries to protect your time, energy, and responsibilities. Stay self-aware and authentic, responding in ways that reflect your true feelings and needs. By combining these skills, you can navigate difficult conversations with confidence, respect, and effectiveness, building stronger relationships and creating positive outcomes. Become a confident, thoughtful communicator. Many people say yes to requests because they feel they have to or because they are afraid of confrontation. This can lead to stress and unbalanced relationships. Being clear about your boundaries and needs helps you build healthier, fairer relationships. Assertiveness isn't just about speaking up for yourself. It also involves listening carefully to others. A truly assertive communicator is someone who confidently expresses their thoughts, feelings, and needs. Listens empathetically to the thoughts and feelings of others. When you combine confidence with empathy, you create a space where both parties feel respected and heard, which strengthens trust and understanding. Interpersonal skills. Interpersonal skills are a group of abilities that help you connect better with others and improve relationships. One key skill is the ability to adapt your communication style depending on the person or situation. For example, when talking to a close friend, you might use casual language and share personal stories. In a formal business meeting, you would likely use professional, structured language. By adapting your style, you make sure your message is received effectively and that you communicate in a way that fits the situation. Nonviolent communication. Nonviolent communication is a way to express your feelings and needs without blaming or judging others. It's very helpful in conflict situations. This method has 4 steps. Observe the situation without judgment. Express your feelings about the situation. Identify your needs that are not being met. Make a request for a change in behavior. For example, instead of saying, "You never listen to me," you could say, "I feel frustrated when my suggestions aren't acknowledged. I need to know that my input is valued. Can we make time to discuss this?" This approach communicates your concerns clearly without escalating conflict, and it encourages cooperation. The importance of feedback. Feedback is one of the most powerful tools for improving communication, both personally and professionally. It helps you understand how your message was received and whether it was clear or misunderstood. Giving feedback should be constructive, specific, and respectful. It's not about criticizing, but helping others improve. For example, instead of saying, "Your presentation was bad," you could say, "Your presentation was informative." To make it even better, you could speak more slowly so the audience can follow along more easily. Receiving feedback can be challenging, especially if it's critical. But staying open-minded allows you to use feedback to grow. Key tips for receiving feedback. Listen carefully without interrupting. Ask questions if you need clarification. Focus on how you can improve, rather than taking it personally. Active listening is essential here. When giving or receiving feedback, listening fully ensures that communication is clear, respectful, and effective. Summary. To improve your communication and relationships, be assertive, clearly stating your needs and boundaries while respecting others. Listen actively and empathetically to understand others' perspectives. Adapt your communication style to the person and situation. Use nonviolent communication to address issues without conflict. Give and receive feedback constructively, focusing on growth and improvement. By practicing these skills, you can create stronger, healthier relationships, resolve conflicts more effectively, and communicate with confidence and clarity in any situation. Body language is a very important part of communication. It includes the gestures, posture, facial expressions, and eye contact that we use without speaking. In fact, studies show that a large part of what we communicate comes from nonverbal cues, not just words. Being aware of your own body language and noticing other people's cues can help you communicate more effectively. For example, if a colleague avoids eye contact or slouches while talking, it may mean they feel uncomfortable or unsure. If someone is leaning forward, nodding, and maintaining eye contact, they are likely interested and engaged. By observing these cues, you can adjust your communication. You might ask gently, "Is everything okay?" Or, "You seem a bit distracted. Is something on your mind?" This shows that you are aware and considerate of their feelings. The role of feedback in communication. Feedback is essential for personal growth and team collaboration. Accepting feedback, even if it's difficult, is important. Responding defensively can hurt communication and block improvement. For example, instead of saying, "I don't agree with your feedback," you could say, "Thank you for your input. I will work on improving that part of my presentation." In teams, feedback helps ensure everyone is aligned with goals and can share ideas freely. Effective feedback should be specific. Focus on behavior or results, not personal traits. Timely. Given soon after the event or action. Constructive. Offers ways to improve rather than just pointing out mistakes. When feedback is delivered well, it encourages growth, collaboration, and trust within a team. Key aspects of nonverbal communication. Posture and gestures. Standing or sitting upright shows confidence. Leaning slightly forward can indicate interest. Crossed arms or looking away may suggest defensiveness or disengagement. Facial expressions. Smiling conveys warmth and friendliness. Frowning or tight lips can signal frustration or discomfort. Eye contact. Maintaining eye contact shows confidence and attention. Avoiding eye contact can mean discomfort or lack of engagement. Tone of voice. Tone can change the meaning of words. For example, "That's great" can be enthusiastic with a cheerful tone or sarcastic with a flat tone. Being mindful of your tone ensures that your message is understood as you intend. Observing and engaging others. Active observation of others' body language helps you engage them better. If someone seems disengaged, you can ask for their opinion or invite them to share their thoughts. Recognizing cues like nodding, leaning forward, or fidgeting allows you to adjust your approach. By combining awareness of your own body language, noticing others' nonverbal cues, and using a clear, respectful tone, you can communicate more effectively and build stronger relationships. Summary. To improve communication through body language and feedback, pay attention to your own gestures, posture, and tone. Watch for others' nonverbal cues to understand their feelings. Accept feedback calmly and respond constructively. Use specific, timely, and actionable feedback in team settings. Adjust your communication based on what you observe to engage everyone effectively. By practicing these skills, you can connect with people more deeply, resolve misunderstandings, and strengthen personal and professional relationships. The way you speak, your tone of voice, can change how people understand your message. Tone helps avoid misunderstandings and ensures that your message is received as you intend. In a professional setting, use a calm and respectful tone to show authority and professionalism. In a casual or friendly setting, you can use a more relaxed tone to create a comfortable atmosphere. Tone is not just about sounding nice. It affects how people respond to you and interpret your message. Listening with intent. Effective communication is not only about speaking clearly, it's also about listening carefully. Listening with intent means paying full attention to the speaker, maintaining eye contact, nodding or giving small verbal acknowledgments like, "I see," or "that makes sense." Avoiding distractions like phones or other tasks while listening. When you listen with intent, the speaker feels valued and heard. This builds trust and rapport, encourages them to share more, and can lead to deeper, more meaningful conversations. Listening carefully is often more powerful than speaking because it shows that you genuinely care about the other person's thoughts and feelings. Asking open-ended questions. By practicing these skills, you can create stronger, healthier relationships, resolve conflicts more effectively, and communicate with confidence and clarity in any situation. Body language is a very important part of communication. It includes the gestures, posture, facial expressions, and eye contact that we use without speaking. In fact, studies show that a large part of what we communicate comes from nonverbal cues, not just words. Being aware of your own body language and noticing other people's cues can help you communicate more effectively. For example, if a colleague avoids eye contact or slouches while talking, it may mean they feel uncomfortable or unsure. If someone is leaning forward, nodding, and maintaining eye contact, they are likely interested and engaged. By observing these cues, you can adjust your communication. You might ask gently, "Is everything okay?" Or, "You seem a bit distracted. Is something on your mind?" This shows that you are aware and considerate of their feelings. The role of feedback in communication. Feedback is essential for personal growth and team collaboration. Accepting feedback, even if it's difficult, is important. Responding defensively can hurt communication and block improvement. For example, instead of saying, "I don't agree with your feedback," you could say, "Thank you for your input. I will work on improving that part of my presentation." In teams, feedback helps ensure everyone is aligned with goals and can share ideas freely. Effective feedback should be specific. Focus on behavior or results, not personal traits. Timely. Given soon after the event or action. Constructive. Offers ways to improve rather than just pointing out mistakes. When feedback is delivered well, it encourages growth, collaboration, and trust within a team. Key aspects of nonverbal communication. Posture and gestures. Standing or sitting upright shows confidence. Leaning slightly forward can indicate interest. Crossed arms or looking away may suggest defensiveness or disengagement. Facial expressions. Smiling conveys warmth and friendliness. Frowning or tight lips can signal frustration or discomfort. Eye contact. Maintaining eye contact shows confidence and attention. Avoiding eye contact can mean discomfort or lack of engagement. Tone of voice. Tone can change the meaning of words. For example, "That's great" can be enthusiastic with a cheerful tone or sarcastic with a flat tone. Being mindful of your tone ensures that your message is understood as you intend. Observing and engaging others. Active observation of others' body language helps you engage them better. If someone seems disengaged, you can ask for their opinion or invite them to share their thoughts. Recognizing cues like nodding, leaning forward, or fidgeting allows you to adjust your approach. By combining awareness of your own body language, noticing others' nonverbal cues, and using a clear, respectful tone, you can communicate more effectively and build stronger relationships. Summary. To improve communication through body language and feedback, pay attention to your own gestures, posture, and tone. Watch for others' nonverbal cues to understand their feelings. Accept feedback calmly and respond constructively. Use specific, timely, and actionable feedback in team settings. Adjust your communication based on what you observe to engage everyone effectively. By practicing these skills, you can connect with people more deeply, resolve misunderstandings, and strengthen personal and professional relationships. The way you speak, your tone of voice, can change how people understand your message. Tone helps avoid misunderstandings and ensures that your message is received as you intend. In a professional setting, use a calm and respectful tone to show authority and professionalism. In a casual or friendly setting, you can use a more relaxed tone to create a comfortable atmosphere. Tone is not just about sounding nice. It affects how people respond to you and interpret your message. Listening with intent. Effective communication is not only about speaking clearly, it's also about listening carefully. Listening with intent means paying full attention to the speaker, maintaining eye contact, nodding or giving small verbal acknowledgments like, "I see," or "that makes sense." Avoiding distractions like phones or other tasks while listening. When you listen with intent, the speaker feels valued and heard. This builds trust and rapport, encourages them to share more, and can lead to deeper, more meaningful conversations. Listening carefully is often more powerful than speaking because it shows that you genuinely care about the other person's thoughts and feelings. Asking open-ended questions.